Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. As of today, people watching this video for the first time will know that we've just lost our Queen, Queen Elizabeth II. When I started this project that I'm going to do today, I'd actually started doing the initial part of it on the day the Queen died, which was last Thursday. We're now on Wednesday of the following week, and yesterday we watched the Queen coming back from Scotland. I'd like to dedicate this video to Queen Elizabeth II because this is a rose called Jubilee Celebration, which is part of a range of roses from oh, my mind's going blank. I apologise for this because we're all still a bit upset with what's gone on. It's a rose that was bred by David Austin. As I said in my previous video, David Austin is a grower. There are quite a few roses that do bear his name in various different forms, and he has got over 200 roses which are actually being developed by David Austin out of the 600 varieties that they actually sell that have come from different areas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the rose that we're going to do now, and then I'm going to show you another rose from the same range which is actually named after Queen Elizabeth. So I'm just going to put my camera down to my board so I can show you these better. Just bear with me a second. There we are. Sorry about that. Right, so the rose that I'm actually going to do is this one, which is called Jubilee Celebration. I'm not quite sure which Jubilee was done for, but it's a beautiful rose colour-wise. Here, I've got a rose out of my garden, which is this one. This is actually a fresh rose, believe it or not. And this one is actually called Queen Elizabeth. So you can see the similarities between the two. The difference between the two is that this is an HT rose and this one is a shrub rose. So I'll just get rid of that rose there. I'll just pop that up in there. I'll put that in some water later. We'll just move that out of the way. Now there's quite a lot to this, and I have actually done this video before and something went wrong with it, so I'm having to record it again from beginning to end. So the different stages that there are the first stage I'm going to do, which is this, which is the very centre of the rose, because the centre of the rose is very messy. If I can find my mobile phone, I'll show you a picture of the actual rose. So this is the picture of the actual rose that I'm going to do. So if you look at that side of that, that's a little bit more mauvey on the picture, but it's a bit difficult to take a picture exactly as it is. But as you can see, the centre of it is very sort of squidged up. So I can't think of another word to call it. Right, so we'll just get rid of that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use some of the cutters in the set that I showed you before, which are this set, which are advertised as David Austin rose cutters, and the ones that I'm going to use are these four cutters here. These are all also used for another shrub rose that David Austin does, which has got the centres of the rose where they're a bit more even. So the colour I'm going to use is this colour here, and the colour that I've used to colour my paste with is called Pink from Sugar Flare, which is just basically, hang on when I find where I've put it, should be still here somewhere. No, that's the wrong one. I have got it on here somewhere, I'll find it later on anyway. And because of the type of flower it is, I am actually going to do it a little bit lighter on the edge, because in the picture it is a little bit lighter on the edge, and I didn't realise until after I'd done the rose. So I'm going to change that a little bit when I get to the end for this next section. Don't forget, everybody, to subscribe to my channel. It's free to subscribe. If you've got any comments about anything, leave those below as well. And I'll be leaving a description below about this particular time, although some of you may be watching at a later date when it's gone past the things that are going on at the moment in the news. Right, so I'm going to start off by doing my usual thing, putting some white fat onto my board to roll my paste out on. I'm just going to get rid of those cutters out of the way for the time being, and we only need that one. An ordinary heart cutter is too wide for doing this, and the dip in the top as well is slightly shallower than a normal heart cutter. But if you haven't got the cutters that I've got, you could probably get away with using those. There's no rule that says you can't. But a lot of the petals in the centre are all done with the same cutter. So I'm going to start rolling this out to do the first part. And unlike the last time that I did this video, the one that didn't go to plan, I'm going to stop and start recording in between, because it made it a hell of a long video. So I'm going to try and shorten it this time, because I know you don't want to be sat for over 2 hours watching a video. Well, you might, but there again, you'd have to put up with me for about 2.5 hours, which is what happened with the last video. Some of the flowers are more complicated and do take a lot longer, so anybody that's not familiar with how much we charge for these sort of things, when you realise how much time and effort goes into it, and that, bearing in mind that I did stop and start in that video as well, there's a hell of a lot of work goes into sugar flowers, and that's why we charge so much for them. Same with the cakes as well. I mean, the more time you spend on a cake, the more decoration on it there is on it, the more expensive it becomes. And anybody that's watched my video on costing up will know what I mean, where I've sort of tried to explain in layman's terms how you need to price up your cakes. You can find that on my channel there if you're interested and want to have a look, if you're either in business or thinking of starting up in business. The principle goes with everything that you do, whether it's just making the flowers or doing the whole thing, doing the cake with flowers on it and everything. You know, because some of them are quite complicated depending on what you're doing. Trying to get this as thin as I can while I'm talking to you here. That's why I'm talking, because I don't want you just sat there for God knows how long just watching me roll paste out. Don't forget, if you want any information about any of the products that I'm using, or even the paste as well, this is my vegan recipe. That's also on my channel. I show you how to make that, so if you want that. It does take longer to dry as well, and it does stay flexible for quite a while. I don't know whether this is still flexible or not. No, it's not now, but this was done 2 or 3 days ago, and up until last night it was still a little bit flexible. It's not now, but it was for 2 or 3 days, so means that the petals don't break off as easy if you drop them, or well, God forbid, or I'm not saying they won't break, but they don't break as easily. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut out 12 petals, and I slipped with that one, so I'm going to do that one again. Not bothered about that one. I'm going to do right from beginning to end with this part of this of the beginning of the rose, because it's different to the way that you do other roses. And one of them's not plain ball. There we have got you. I might not necessarily use all these petals. The centres that I've made for the one that I've finished and the other parts getting ready for this part, I didn't necessarily use all the petals. It's just up to you how it looks and how happy you are with it at that particular point as to how many petals you're going to use. And I've put that in with the green paste, I don't want that in there. The other feature that I didn't point out on this rose was that the calyx of the rose, I'll just go back to it now, I've done that a different way. It's not using a cutter. I've done this by hand, the calyx on that, so that's another thing that I'm going to show you on this particular rose. It's different to what I've done before. Right, so get these onto here. Whoops, nearly. I do have a habit of dropping things on the floor, which is a bit aggravating, and I try not to do it when I'm filming, but I am a bit clumsy sometimes, so it can be a little bit of a downfall. I've got them all there. Right, so thin the edges. Make sure, like before, I've paid more attention to the top part of the petal. Don't be frightened of putting some pressure on. Because then you can get some shape into your petals before you put them together, so they're not flat. Even though sometimes in nature, and I know I keep repeating myself here, in reality they could be quite flat, but if you try and do them as flat as that in sugar, they just don't look lifelike at all. So sometimes you have to use what we call artistic license in order to make them look real. I hope some more people leave comments for me as well. I've had it's taken quite a while, but I am getting quite a few people that are leaving comments about the videos and asking questions about things. I always like to hear back from you, and I will always try and reply to everybody that puts a comment on. I know a lot of people don't always do that, because I put comments for people on YouTube asking questions and things like that, and to date I haven't had any replies, which I think is awful. I try and reply to everybody, same as when I post on Facebook the pictures. When anybody makes a comment, I always go on and thank them for the comment, each one individually, because I think it's only right that if people have taken the trouble to say something nice about your work, that you go on and thank them. It's just, maybe it's just the way that I've been brought up, because I've been around a long time. Unlike a lot of you younger people, I was around when the Queen was crowned Queen Elizabeth II. I was only very young at the time, but my parents bought a television just for the coronation, and all our neighbours came into our house to watch the coronation, because they didn't have TVs, because at that time they were very rare. And it's something that I remember with great fondness happening when I was a young child. So I'm the same with a lot of people that took the children to watch the cortege coming through London with the Queen's body. Some of them may be old enough to remember things, some of them may not, but the thing is, it's a part of history. I know I'm going on about this a bit. You can tell that I'm a royalist, can't you? That I'm in favour of the royal family, and I've lost my scissors somewhere. There they are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have I got any spare ones up there? Yeah, I've got a spare one. I'm going to cut this. No, I've done that wrong. I'm going to cut this into 4. Right, and I should have another one to go with that. And I wasn't going to do that. I'm getting above myself at the moment. So I've got another one there that I can use. What I want is one for the centre. So I need a 20 gauge wire, which I haven't got there, because these are going to be attached directly to one wire, and this is going to support the whole flower. Where's my 20 gauge green wires? There we are. So I'll just get one of those. That's what happens when you're talking, you're not concentrating on what you're doing. And I do have a habit of talking a lot. So if anybody's watching me and they don't like it, switch the sound off or switch the sound down, and then you won't have to listen to me. So I'm going to do all this at one time. Since I've cut those wires out, I'm going to do the whole lot, because I have some others that I'm going to wire onto separate wires. But I'm going to start off with this central wire to start off with. So what I'm going to do now is, depending on what paste you're using, if you're using this paste, it's quite sticky, so you don't need to put any glue on. But if you find that things come off the wires, then put some glue on your wire before you do this. And all I'm doing is just working this up the wire right to the very top, like that. And that hasn't stayed on. For some reason it's not sticky enough, so I'm going to try another piece. It could be that my paste is drying out a lot because I've worked it quite a lot. So I picked up something from somewhere there, that's gone. In fact, I'm going to be extra secure. I'm going to put a bit of glue on the wire, seeing as my paste isn't behaving itself, just to be on the safe side. Pick something else up there as well. I'm picking bits of colour up from somewhere. I don't know what I've done there, but it could be to do with my plaster, because I cut my finger the other day when I was doing the first video, and it started bleeding, so I had to stop and put that right. So that's why I've got a plaster on. I'm just going to have a look in a minute and see if that's healed up a bit. For anybody that doesn't know, if you cut yourself and you're putting a plaster on it, that hasn't gone right through the centre, has it? Do that again. That's better. Put some honey on it. You'll find that it heals up a lot faster. And that's what I did. I put some honey on, so hopefully, since it's been a couple of days, we'll have a look and see if it's healed. Put those back. It's getting in the way, so it's a bit annoying, is this? Yes, I picked some fluff up on there. That's where that was coming from. Let's get rid of that. Yeah, it's not too bad. Right, so once we've got to that point, you get rid of that. None of my flowers are going on cakes or anything like that when I'm doing these videos, so if anybody's got any comments about anything, no, they're not going to be given to anybody. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn them over now. I'm not going to vein these either, because nobody's going to scrutinise the centre of the flower like this. So what I want to do is to sort of more or less scrunch these up, a bit like when I made the dahlia petals for the pom-pom dahlia. I just want a thin bit at the bottom there, and then the petals to open out a bit. If you notice, I turn them over so that they, when I thin the edges and it curled back, they stay curled back. Come on, go. This one isn't behaving itself. There we are, got you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the video and I'll come back when I've done all these. So I've got all these petals done now, ready to go onto the wire. So I'm going to start off by putting the glue on the wire. Now this part's fiddly because when I did the last video I kept having pieces falling off all over the place. So we're going to see how we go. So I'm going to try and get the ones that they're more closely wrapped around each other and get those onto this wire. What you've got to be careful of is that you don't get glue on your fingers if you can avoid it, because then it pulls your petals off if you're not careful. So if you can get that bit covered like that, then we can roll those onto the wire. That make those more secure. It's a good idea to have it laid down on something as well, on your fingers or whatever, to get all your petals on. So I'm going to glue down in between those to add another one on. Try and keep them all at the same level. It doesn't matter if they turn round either, if they go a bit skew with, because that adds to the character of this centre of this rose. Also another thing as well, if you've got the Cellcraft formers handy, they will come in handy to hold all this together until it dries. And just before I get all my petals on, well, I've still got control over this, I'm going to get my former over, which is this one here. If you haven't got that, try and make one out of some Bako foil or something like that. Oops, dropped one off. We've started already, they're going. Bring that over this way. Try not to get too much glue on your brush as well. That can, because they slide off with the weight of the paste, because don't forget sugar's quite heavy, so that can be why you don't get them to stay on. I'm doing better than I did in the last video. They were all dropping off last time. Right, so once I've done that, I'm going to get this straight into the former. I've got made a hole in the bottom and just drop that in like that. So once I've got that in there, I have somewhere got a bulldog clip. Here we are. And get that onto your wire underneath like that, so that holds it in place, and then you can put that into your foam or whatever else you're going to put it in to dry, and then you end up with a dry centre like that. This is a bit scruffier, but never mind. I've picked a hair up somewhere on that one. Right, so the next stage now is to make, how many of these have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I should have another one. 6. So I'm going to make 6 centres now for this. So I'm just going to switch the video off for a few minutes because I need to colour some more paste because I haven't got enough for what I want. Right, I'm back again. I've made some more paste up, so I've got the colour matched fairly well. Just mix the two together if you have to do that to make sure you get the same colour, but try not to do it after you've started one part of the flower. You need to make sure you've got more than enough paste when you first start off. So we'll get this rolled out to get to the next stage. Another tip which I've probably given out before because I always forget what I've put. I've done that many videos, I forget what I've said in other videos, but when you're colouring your paste, rub some white fat on your hands before you start, because that way you'll find, particularly with deeper colours like green is one of the bad colours to do, or if you're doing anything in black or that type of thing, or any strong colours, you'll find it's a lot easier to wash the colour off your hands if you rub some white fat in first, because it acts like a barrier cream. Another thing is when you're mixing your paste and you've got to what you think is the right colour and it looks as though it's mixed all the way through, cut it in half and make sure that it's not streaky inside, because if it's streaky inside then you need to carry on kneading until you get through and you get a clear block of colour and no ripples of white running through it, or paler shades or darker shades or whatever. Unless of course you want to do the flower that's got petals like that, because some flowers do. There was a rose I had in my garden that was a bit like that, and a long time ago, and I can't remember what they called it now. That was the name of a grower at the time, but not this particular one. I think it was off a gardener that used to be on TV. He's not with us anymore now. Like a lot of them, he's long gone. Whoops, I've just split my paste there. Never mind. Right. I'm just checking to make my microphones on, because I've done that before today. Recorded, there's a couple of videos that I've got where I've had to do voiceovers, and I try and avoid doing that if I can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So you want about 18 petals. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 6 of 3 petals together for this. So I'll just get all those off. Concentration is silent, isn't it? Sometimes you hold your breath. Have you found you do that? It'd be nice to hear some people's funny stories about things that happen while they're doing jobs like this as well. Give other people a bit of a giggle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Got them all out. Not missed any. So we can put that away. Keep that covered up. Oops. Nearly lost one of mine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have lost one. There it is. It's rolled off. We'll just take those off. Now for the next step, I'm going to thin all the edges again. I'm not going to bother with the veining at this particular point in time, because like I say, it's so close in you can't see it. But if you want to put the veining in, you can. It's your flower, it's up to you how you do it. I'm only here to give you a guide on various different types of flowers. I mean, a lot of things, when we're doing the smaller versions, not so much with the larger ones, because with the smaller ones you don't see all the detail anyway. If you go to all that trouble, you're only making the job harder for yourself, longer for yourself, and having to charge more to customers. So bearing in mind what you're doing and what you're charging, how much work goes into it and how much time you spend on it, because time is money. Right, so we'll thin these out like we did with the others. Again, concentrating on that top edge. Anybody that's just starting to learn, whenever you're doing any petals like this, so you don't drift in, do it from the middle down one side and the middle down the other side, and then when you want to go over the top you can just go backwards and forwards like that. The reason for that is because when I was teaching in college, I found a lot of people, if they tried to start at one side and go all the way around, they ended up drifting in and leaving a groove around the edge of the petals, which didn't look very good when it comes to putting them together. And then they're asking questions like, why don't my flowers look like your flowers? Well, apart from the fact I've been doing a lot longer than you, this is why. And I'd go over and go through it with them and show them firsthand, because obviously in class I'm sat at the top and they're all sat round tables, all that, you know, and the further away they are, the less they can see. So always when teaching, I always went round and helped people that seemed to be having a bit of a problem with things like that, to try and get it right. And they appreciated it, you know. I mean, my classes were more popular than other sugarcraft classes in the college. Unfortunately, now that I've left college, it seems that there are no cake decoration or sugarcraft courses left now, according to the new prospectus that I got through the post. So because I've retired now, they don't have me. But the reason I retired was because people weren't signing up for the course anyway. A lot of people do it from home and think they know what they're doing without being taught all the skills that some of us have learned over years and years of doing it. I mean, when you've been doing it over 30 odd years like I have, you learn a lot, but you never stop learning. This is the thing, things are changing all the time. Cake decorating is like fashion. Every season changes and new ideas are coming in and new techniques. And as somebody that's been in the business a long time, you're having to learn all these new things as you go along as well. This is why I like people stretching me and saying, oh, can you do such and such? If it's something I haven't done, I'll have a go, I'll find out how to do it. If I can't do it, then it's very difficult to do. You probably can't do it. And I'm not being big-headed when I say that. I'm saying that because I've been doing it a long time, and if I find it difficult, then it's not going to be easy for other people either. But as I said before, I will have a go, because I do research everything before I do it. When I used to enter competitions at the NEC for Cake International, which is the biggest cake decorating show in the world, it was the first, and people still come from all over the world to enter. The judges are so fastidious when they're doing the job there, you know, that everything has to be minutely spot on. So I'm just going to get a small piece of paste here, and I'm not going to make you watch me do all these. I'm just going to do one, and then I'll come back when I finish the rest of them. So what I'm using here is a 28 gauge white wire. I'm going to take a tiny piece of paste like that. I don't know whether you can... Hang on, I haven't put my light on. Let me just put my light on, then you can see what I'm doing. Right, if I just put that in the centre like that, and roll it, and I've bent my wire there. We want that to be straight. That's going to go into the wire, onto the wire like that, leaving a bit showing at the end, and then roll it down your wire. This is going to be far too long, so next time I do, I'm going to use half that amount of paste. Take that off the end, and then I'm going to go up and I'm going to take about half of that off, because I don't want all that. This isn't going to be seen. You don't want it to be seen. This is why you need to get it really thin. You just need something for your petals to stick to. Right, and then you need to do, we'll use that little bit that I've got there that I've taken off. So it wants to be about that size, which is, about the size of a medium-sized drugee. Roll that into a sausage. Onto your wire. And then roll that down your wire. So what I'm going to do now, instead of doing all those, I'm going to attach the petals to one of them, and then I will switch the video off. Just take that bit off the bottom there, and then I'll come back when I've done all the rest. So we've got a couple there done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn these petals over. So I want 3 of those petals like that. This is the way you do the centre of what a lot of people call a David Austin rose, although there are a lot of other roses that look the same. I'm just going to glue down there on the first one, and then I'm just going to glue a little bit on 2 of the others. So you get your wire in, pop it down on your petal like that, so there's probably about 1/3 of it showing up at the top, and then bring the petal round and pinch that together to the top, almost like when you're doing a sweet pea for the centre part, to do a pod, just leaving a tiny little bit open at the top, and then that goes onto your next petal. So try and line the V's up at the back, and then just bring that round like that, and then onto the next petal and bring that round. They do want to be very, very slightly above each other like that, and then as soon as you've done that, then that wants to go onto your foam like that, in between there, and just leave that now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch off and I'm going to do them all, and then when I've done the last one I'll come back. Right, so I'm back for the next stage, So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to attach the petals that I did earlier to the centre of the rose that I've already dried. So if you let this dry properly, then it's much easier to control what you're doing with the rest of it. So if you pop the pieces in like that and tape them in, don't worry about them moving around. You can adjust that once you've got them in, and it doesn't matter if they're untidy. We don't want them to be too neat because the centre of this particular rose is quite a messy look. It's the only way that I can describe it. And the reason I needed to let these set a bit more is because we're going to attach some more petals to these to fill it out once we've got these pieces in. Two more to go in. One of the petals is dropped back, but it doesn't really matter because, like I say, it's quite a messy centre, so you don't want to be too neat with it. I have had a few goes at this, so I must admit it took me a while to work out how to do it, because a messy centre, believe me, to make it in sugar is more difficult than trying to make a neat centre, shall we say. Right, so once I've got those in, I can tape down with that now. If you need to pull any wires down to tighten them up, then you can do that. I'm going to come up and adjust that a bit more because I have left a bit of wire showing at the top, because I didn't want the centre to be too high. So I'm just going to pull some of these up. Oh, that's come off the wire. Never mind, we'll adjust that when I get the rest. And see what I mean about things going wrong, I don't take them out. If something comes off or whatever, I'm going to leave it in. But after the next stage has been added, then I'm going to leave this to dry, and then we go on to the next stage because I've already got one of these made. So I'll just pop that to one side for now, and that's dropped off. But we can adjust that once I've sorted that out. So I'm going to get some paste out, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to increase the size of the petals. So I'm going from the first size I started with, which should be out here somewhere, there it is. From that size I'm going to go to that size. So I'm just going to put some white fat on my board again to do this. While I've been offline, I've got a lot of things ready so I can get on and do all of this in one go now. Just get that started. So once I've rolled this out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out another 18 petals, but this time I am going to vein them because they're going to be a little bit more open than the previous layers. I mean, you could have veined the last ones if you wanted to, because on the original I think I veined them all, but then when I looked at it I thought, well, it's not really necessary because nobody's going to look that close unless you're entering a competition. If it's for a competition, that's a different matter. Right, so we'll cut out 18 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'm going to turn that round the other way to get that in. 12. I might not get 18 out of this. 13, 14, no, 15. I'm going to have to cut another 3 out. I'll see if I can roll this bit of top paste out. Oh yeah, that's better. And get another 3 out of that. 1, 2, 3. It's better. I thought I was going to have to roll some more paste out then to do that, but there we are. Where there's a will there's a way. Sometimes if you haven't got a lot of paste, if you turn your next ray upside down to go in between the others, you can save a lot of paste. It's like cutting out material for something with a pattern. You've just got to be careful, not so much with paste, but with fabrics, if you turn it the other way up, sometimes it can affect it. When I worked in retail menswear, oh, donkeys years ago, we once got some trousers delivered, and when we looked at the trousers, it appeared that they'd used 2 different colours of fabric. And what happened was, when we turned them round, it turns out what they'd done was to save material, because obviously they were off of a production line, they weren't a designer garment or anything like that, and what they'd done was to turn the fabric round, or to cut the opposite side, the opposite way around to the first one, to save material. So wide part on one top part there, and then wide part of this end going that way. The only trouble is, because of the type of fabric it was, you could see the difference, the way the light caught it. So it appeared as though they'd used 2 different lots of material. Like when you're buying wallpaper, always make sure that you get a roll out of the same batch, so check the batch number on the wallpaper to make sure that you're not getting 2 different lots. Although it may look the same, one batch can vary from the other, and if you're doing a full wall of that, you don't want panels that look different to the rest of it, do you? So that's what I was taught by my mother when I bought my first home and we were buying wallpaper for it. She said, just be careful that you get the batch numbers all the same. And I recently did my living room wall a while back, and it cost a hell of a lot of money, but fortunately at the time we had to order it. So I mean, obviously hopefully if the manufacturers are anybody decent, they'll make sure you get all the same batch. Right, so I've got all those out. That passed the time, didn't it, while I was doing that? I do rabbit on a bit. I would say tell me to shut up, but you can't, because you're on the you're not watching in real time. But you won't be the first person to say that. Right, get all these onto the tool pad. As I said earlier on in the video, that I've had a big gap in between the last part that I recorded and this part, for the simple reason that I'm trying to cut down on the length of time that you have to watch a video. So if you're watching me do every single petal that's on here with whatever I'm doing with it, then it's going to be one hell of a long video, which happened with the last one, even though I did turn the camera off for certain parts when I had a lot to do and come back to it. So that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to carry on thinning these edges. Just finish this one off, making sure that you put more emphasis on the top part of the petal, and then I'll come back when I've done them all. Right, I've finished thinning all the edges, so what I've done is I've already veined a lot of the petals. I'm just doing the last two. I'm using the same veiner that I used for the Warm Wishes video. So I quite like this one. It's a new one that I've got, and it's the best veining rose petal veiner that I've found, because a lot of them, the veins don't seem to show up, whereas this one, they are quite, I don't know whether you can see it on camera, you probably not, but they are quite pronounced on here, for a rose anyway, which doesn't have heavy veining. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to repair that one that fell off, which was, I'm going to find out which one it was. And which one fell off? It seems to be staying put now. So as it's staying put, we're not going to mess about with it. I was going to, oh, I have, it's here. So I've got, just need to find the wire that it's come off now. Is that it? I can't see whether that's the one there or not. I can't find the wire. Just bear with me a second. Now, can't find the wire, so I'm going to have to try and glue that in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a little trick. I have done it before in some of my other videos, but this is a way of repairing something. So I'm going to get a tiny bit of paste. Now then, where's my palette knife? There. Just get my palette knife, and then what you need to do then is to put some glue onto the piece of paste that you've got, like that, because the glue is made from the same gum as the paste is made from, which is Tylos powder or artificial gum tragacanth. If you're using gum tragacanth, you can always you can use that as well. But what happens is, when you repair anything with this, it actually does dry harder than it does on its own, because you put in extra Tylos into it, or gum tragacanth, whichever one you're using. So what you need to do is to work that together to make that into a softer paste, like that. Work it all in. Now, strictly speaking, before I put anything else on here, I should let this dry, but that would take too long, so I'm going to risk putting it on and carrying on with this centre. Just hope and pray that it stays in one place. Right, so I'm going to take some of that paste that I've got on my palette knife, and that's going to go in between here, where that's got to go. Now, normally if you're repairing a petal or anything like that, it's best to leave it wherever you're going to let it dry, and don't touch it until it's dried. So if we pop that back in into there like that, there we are. Right, so I've got all those pieces in, so I'm just going to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop this upside down now, because it's easier to work on if I do it this way. In fact, I think I'll pop it upside down on my, find something else. I'll use one of my, a former, there we are. That's not doing anything, that one. Then I can turn the former around rather than turning the rose petals round. So I need my glue now. I'm just going to get rid of this here. I'm just going to move it to one side just in case, because I'm probably tempting fate if I get rid of it altogether. I know something's going to fall off, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave that there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to glue over the petals that I've got there. Where's my glue? There. And then if you get your petals, and this is the back, so you're going to turn that upside down like that. I don't know whether you can see this or not. And then pop that on, and then we need to work that into in between the other petals. Where's my other little tool gone? There we are. Something that's got a small end on it like this, and then that wants to go in between those petals there. Like that. Let's bring that down a bit further. As I say, because of it being a messy centre, it doesn't matter if you're not too neat with this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go around and I'm going to glue all the petals so I can get these straight on. Some, if you've got a bit of more of a gap in between, it won't really matter. And I'm going to finish up on the last petal I've just put in, because we're going to carry on going round in spiral with these. So you just turn that round to there. So that wants to go down there like that. Then that wants to go in between like that. So I'm just going to put one layer on, and then I'm going to switch off and then come back when I get to the last couple of petals. Because you could be bored to tears watching me do this. I thought I heard somebody there say, no we won't. Yes you will. Because I know what it's like watching long videos when I've been watching somebody else's. That one's further apart, so I can get in with my fingers there with that one. This is the last one on that layer. Right, so I'm going to carry on and I'll come back when I get to the last couple. So I'm on to the last couple now. Now at this point, when you get to this stage, this is where you need to leave it upside to dry now, because if you don't, you'll find pieces will drop off. So I'm just going to bend that wire over and stick that into my foam at the side here. Oops. And then I've got one here that I've already got dried. So I'm just going to straighten that wire up again. Get rid of that. And pop that back into my wooden block there. Get rid of that out of the way. I didn't need to repair anything, so I can now get rid of this here that I used to repair those petals with. So I've got a bit of kitchen roll there that can go on there. Get rid of that. So for the next layer, I've already done a load of petals here ready to go on, so I'm just going to cut out a couple of petals and show you what I've done. I've already got all my other petals here made, so these have been left drying, so I'm just going to take some of these off and turn them over ready to fit on, because I need this former here to show you what I did. And I also do a bigger one as well, get a bigger former. So I'm going to use those two first. So I'm going to show you the next two layers, but I'm only going to do an odd petal for each, because I've already cut all the petals out and they've been left drying, so when I put them on they'll stay in place, soft enough to handle but firm enough to keep the shape. Have I put that back in there? No, I haven't. I'm just looking for, oh, it's there. That's what I was looking for. So the cutters I'm going on to now are this one and this one. It seems like ages since I first started doing this video, but I mean, apart from a break that I've had, and as I said, we're going through this process of mourning for Queen Elizabeth, and I've just watched part of the cortege taking her body from Buckingham Palace to Westminster, to the Houses of Parliament, where she's going to rest for 4 days, and people are all queuing up to be able to file past and pay their respects. I know if it's further on down the line, after all of this has happened, which this is what happens with videos that are online permanently, this is probably not new to you because it's probably a long time in the past, but for any of you watching this video when I post it at first, this is still fresh, because by the time I get this online, Her Majesty will have been lying in state for a few hours, and you've probably seen it all over the news, and it's still going to be all over the news for the next few days until Monday, when her funeral is. We don't usually talk about things like this when I'm doing videos. It's just very poignant at the moment that I'm doing a flower that was bred to celebrate the Queen's Jubilee. Right, so I'm just going to cut one of each petal out. I'm not going to bother doing a load because I'm not going to use these anyway. So we'll cut one out of that big one, the small one, and then one of the larger ones. I do need another one, but I'm going to have to roll the paste out again just to do the last layer of petals. Sorry, I've done that wrong. I shouldn't have cut that big one out with that, because I'm going to change the colour. So after that, that's what happens when you're talking about something else and your mind goes off track, which mine does quite often. So again, thin your edges, and then pay more attention to the top edge, so you get that nice and curled back. And then I'll get my veiner, get it the right way round, take the petal into the veiner, and then put the top on. Lift out the veiner, and then I get my small former, pop the petal in with the petal shaped into the round, and then just bring the petals back, so they curve back a bit at the back. Just give it a helping hand. If you've got a little salsic, which I've got somewhere, ah, there it is, just to get underneath it, just to pop that, to curl that back. Like that. And we're going to leave the petal in that former like that until it's set. Now I have actually got some here that are already dried, so that one's already dried in place. It's still a little bit movable, but it will be alright for me to fix onto the rose. So the next thing I'm going to do is, I've added some white paste to the one that I'm using. I think it's that one. Yeah. No, it isn't. It isn't. It's that one. Yeah, that's the one. So I've added equal amounts of white in, like you generally do with most other roses. I'm just going to get a small piece of paste off this because we don't need all that. I'm only doing one petal. Put that away. Then get that one out because that's the lighter one. The reason I'm doing them separately is because the other one needs to be wired. Right, so once I've rolled that out, take that cutter, cut that one out. And thin the edges. I've done that wrong. No, that should be the bigger petal. Oh, I'm having one of those days today. I don't know what you like. I've already cut that one out, haven't I? So it's the bigger one that I want, the larger petal. And I'm going to cut two layers out. One's going to be wired and one's going to be unwired. So this is the next colour. Which is doing a larger petal. To make sure I do it wide enough so that the petal cutter fits in it. Better. So we'll get one of those. So that goes with that one. That can go in there. And this one wants to go onto the pad. When you're doing bigger ones, you can go onto a larger ball tool if you want. And again, making sure you pay special attention to the top of the petal. Get my burner. Then pop the petal into there. Give it a good press, and then take that out of your veiner. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that over where it's curled back, and then I'm going to give it a bit of extra curl. When you get to the outer petals, that's when they curve over more. So with the small cell stick, I'm just going to roll the petal back like that. Then you want a larger former and get your petal into there like that, with the folded back edges on the top of your former. Then put that one to one side to dry. Just put that out there. That's one of those, so that can go in there. And then I'm going to do with the lighter colour, again adding the same amount of white in, but I don't need all this. Just use half of that. There it is. Just try that, see, make sure my petal fits in there. Yeah, that's alright. And then I'm going to go up the middle with a ridge. Now I don't know about other rolling pins that I've talked about on the market, but on this one, although it has got more ridges than the other ones that I've found, I'll just roll this out and then I'll show you what I mean, because it's a bit difficult to describe without showing you what I'm talking about. You do get different widths between your ridges. They're not excessive, but it does give you that option if you're doing a big petal, to make sure you get the ridge in the middle of the widest parts of the pin. I don't think it's as much on this as on the other one, because I have another one and I'm sure there's more of a difference on that. But these things are handmade and not made by machine, then they can vary quite a bit. Right, so once I've done that, need my petal cutter. There it is. Get that where I've got a decent ridge and enough paste on either side of it. When you're doing this, it does make your fingers quite sore. What you could do is get a little placemat, drinks mat, and put that on top to press on, and it's not as hard on your fingers than if you have something. One of my students did that with me. I'd never thought about it until she brought some in for the class, and she got them from a pound shop, so you'd have to spend a lot of money on it. But if it makes life easier for you, then it's worth buying. And if you're doing a lot of flowers or a lot of petals and that, it does make life a hell of a lot easier. So what I want now is I want a 26 gauge wire. I haven't got any bits, have I? Oh, I have got one there. Yeah, I've got one. I thought I didn't have any cut, but I have. This is a bit longer than I would, but half of it's too short, so I'm going to use this anyway. So what I need to do now is to get this wire up the ridge in the petal. just do a little bit of time, get it between your first finger and your thumb and feel it go up the paste very gently. And don't forget, when you're starting it off, to twist it as well before you put it in, to stop the Semtex that's on the wire from unravelling. So there we are, we've got that into the... Now that's showing a bit, and I don't want it to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this as the back. This is a cheat that I've got. I mean, don't do this if you're doing a competition, but if you're doing it for your own pleasure or for a cake or something like that, you can do this. And this is the effect you get with the lick and stick method that I've shown in some of my other videos as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll some paste out and get a really thin piece of paste. And as I said, because my paste is quite sticky, I can get away with this without putting any glue on it, rather than having to roll the petal out again and do it again. But as I say, I'm not using this petal anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So what I need to do is to get that onto my pad and thin the edges. I'll just get rid of this paste. There we are. Concentrate on that top edge. Like that. And just move that down there, get my burner. Now you need to shape your petal for this. So look at which way your vener's going. It's going over that way, so we're going to bend it over that way. So that's going to be the back now. Get your petal into the vener. This doesn't matter if you're using a flat vener, but you do need to shape it if you're using a flat shaper to put in a flat vener. I'm getting my tongue stuck between my teeth. And then put the top of the vener on. Oops, push that up. There we are. Give it a good press. Petal out of the vener. Now I've got a little bit over the edge, but that's going to curl back anyway. That should have been a bit further down into the paste, but that doesn't matter because you're not going to see it. Right, where's my little cell stick? It's hiding from me. There it is. So again, like we did on the previous one, the unwired one, curve your petal over and roll it back like that. There we are, like that. And then I've got some there that are, one there that's dried, we'll use another. Then get your petal into your former, curving your petals back, and get that right down into the bottom to shape that. And just take your time, just making sure you get all your curves as you want them before you do anything else with it. There we are. Then you can set that to one side to dry. Just pop that there. Right, so once you've done that, put that petal cutter away, we don't need that anymore, and we can start assembling now. So I'm going to get the dried centre that I've got, turn that upside down, and again I'm going to put it on top of perspex vane, anything that can lift it up that you can turn around rather than handling the rose. And then I'm going to get my petals that I've already made, and I've got 2 layers of the smaller petal that are going to be, oh, that's the larger one, don't want them. 3, 4, 5, hang on, 3, 6, 8, should have another one of them somewhere. And I've lost one somewhere, never mind, anyway, we'll carry on. I'm a trooper. It'll turn up when I'm not, oh, they're there, aren't they? I'd already taken them out, that's what had happened there. Wondered why I was short of petals for that one. I've got some here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to glue about 1/3 of the petal and then attach that. Now this is where you go back to the way that you do a normal rose. These want to go fairly close to the wire, well, they want to be right on the wire for these, because then that will lift that petal back from the other petals that we've got on there. And think about which way you're going to overlap. Now normally when I've got it upside down and I'm going to put petals on an overlap, I go around to the left. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to go around to the left to overlap. So just bear in mind that when you come to your last one, that is going to go underneath your first one. Now if you hadn't let the rest of it dry, you couldn't do this because it would flatten your centre if you did. So that's why you need to let that dry before you get to this stage. And as I say, these petals are quite a while to dry before I got to this stage. So that's going to go over that one and under the other one that you put on there, like that. That's that stage. So then carry on and put the next stage on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, for speed, and I'm going to glue round the top of these petals here, so that I can just attach these petals. Don't get too much on, you don't want your glue running down there. And if you need to, you can always move these petals round a little bit. Oops. To even them out a little bit. Just do that. Right, so then we can start putting the next layer on. So I'm coming down a little bit so that they stick out a little bit more. And all I'm doing is aiming to get them across the join this time, but putting them slightly a little bit back. Away from the wire so that they show underneath. And that's going to go in there. If it either goes under or it doesn't go under. If it doesn't go under, it doesn't really matter. That one's going to be a little bit loose, so So now we've got to that stage. So now we can put on the layer of unwired petals, and then I would leave this to dry a bit before I put anything else on it, so that they don't all fall off. So again, I'm just going to go around and do about a third of the petals with the glue. Oh, that's the one I made that's soft, isn't it? Right, so we get the larger petals down that have already been left to dry, like the smaller ones. Now that's a soft one. Don't want that. Should have another one somewhere. No, I haven't. No, that's it. That's the right amount. I'm second guessing myself here. So these want to go on up to the wire, across the joint with your previous layer. With them still being a little bit softer. I mean, you don't have to leave them quite as long as I've done. I mean, you did leave them for quite a while, so that they are a bit more flexible. But it's basically this top end here, where the petals curve back, that you want to dry, so that you can move them about. And that one's going to go underneath the first one, so I'm just going to put some glue on this one, because there isn't as much glue there, because I'd already put it over the other layer and we've covered that up. So I'm going to glue that one, and that's going to go underneath the first one and over the last one, in between those two there, like that. So now we've got to that stage. So now I'm going to leave that now to let that set before I do the next part of the video. But what I'm going to do first of all, before I do that, just get rid of these separators out of the way. I'm going to show you how I did the calyx for this. I'm going to find my green. There it is. So what I need now is I need some 28 gauge white wires, and I'm going to let this dry a little bit as well while I leave that to. I put that rose up there because we've got a sunny day today, so I'm putting that up there to help that to dry a bit, ready for the next layers. Let's get rid of that out of the way. So some 28 gauge wire. Now when I did the last one, I did the wires too short, so I'm going to use 2 wires this time. And I had a little bit of difficulty getting the taping it all together. So I'm going to correct that mistake, which is a good reason for doing it again. You can put, if something goes wrong, then just do it a different way the next time you do it. But it's like everything else that we do, you learn as you go along. Nobody knows everything. So I want a small ball of paste. What you can do at this stage to try and get them even is to roll out your balls of paste at the same time, ready to put together. Just get that need that a little bit more before I do it, because I've got creases in that other one. I'll do that again in a minute. And if you need to make any adjustments of the amount of paste you've got at this time, you can do that. Not sure whether that one was smaller because it was a bit misshapen, so I'm just going to check that one. Probably a slightly bit more paste in it. Start off with however you mean to go on, and then stick to that. Better. Not perfect, but it's better. The colour that I've used for my green, again, I've used the Christmas green from Sugar Flare. That's my favourite colour at the moment. Or if you're using Squire's Kitchen, then the equivalent to the Christmas green is Holly and Ivy. But not Holly and Ivy in this Sugar Flare, because that's very blue, is that? Don't like that colour at all. You only need one green in your arsenal, because most of the colouring is done with dusts when you're doing anything like this. So again, like you've got 5 petals on there, you want 5 parts to your calyx. And the advantage of making a calyx this way is that you can curl your calyx back, which you wouldn't normally do with an unwired one. In the last video I did the Mexican hat method, so between all of the roses that I've done on here, I've used all the different types of ways of doing a calyx. So there we've got the 5 balls. They're not all exactly the same size, but there's nothing perfect in nature, so we'll start at that end because that's the first one that I did, didn't we? So if you start to roll it, and then roll one end of your paste into a bit of a cone, and then you need to get your wire in the base of the cone, up the cone, just past the end. So what we're going to do is we're going to roll this onto the wire now, but I'm just concentrating on the top end. I'm leaving the thick end at the bottom because we want that to stay thick. So it's the top end you need to concentrate on to make that almost into a point. So that's where you want to be with that. So start off your next one. And as I say, if your paste is sticky like this, is if you're using this paste or whatever make of paste you're using, you don't need to put any glue on. But if you find that you have problems with petals and leaves and things coming off of wires, then obviously your paste's not sticky enough. The one that I didn't like was Renshaw's flower modelling paste, and I tried their new flower paste as well. I wasn't keen on that either. They sent me a sample to try, and I'm sorry I had to say that I didn't like it because it's not sticky enough. I don't know how they make it, but they do make it egg free for a start off. So what else they're doing with it, I've no idea, that makes it so it's too dry. Doesn't have that stickiness with it. When you first make it, when it's fresh, it should be quite sticky, but after kneading you lose that stickiness, but it stays sticky enough in the content for when you're putting it onto wires for it to stay put and not come off. So once you've rolled it on like this, it should, big word for a Thursday afternoon, adhere to your, sorry, Wednesday, isn't it? Wednesday today, not Thursday. So it adheres to your wire. Right, so that's 3 of them. Again, always when you put your paste wire in, twist it like that before you put it in to make sure that it doesn't start to unravel, and then you're ready to go then. The wire's showing a little bit there, so I just need to roll that end up past the end of the wire. There we are, that's that one. I'm just going to re-knead this paste because it's been stood there a while, to make sure it's still soft enough for me to work with. If you're not quick at working them, don't try and take your bits of paste out like I'm doing. Do one at a time and put it back in your bag, and then just, you know, it's no faster. I'm just trying to cut down the speed for this video, but if you're doing it at home, take your time. Don't try and rush things. Right, so that's all those done. So the next thing you're going to do, get your verner, just move that out of the way because that was going to fall on the floor. Get each of your things, verner on top, give it a really good press to flatten it, like that. As I say, it doesn't matter if they're not all exactly the same, because nothing's perfect in nature, and you find all sorts of faults on petals and that. If I go back to that rose that I brought in, which is looking a little bit limp now because I didn't put it in water, you probably find if you look at the edge of petals, they're not perfect. You're always going to find little bits of imperfections in them. It's been opening up while it's been sat here, but it has been here quite some time. Sorry about that, somebody came to the door with a parcel, so I had to stop the video there, and while I stopped the video I'm trying to find my scissors for the next step and I can't see them, so I'll carry on and do this, and then I'll stop again, and then I can come back to it and when I find out what I've done with them. Knowing me, probably dropped them on the floor somewhere. I did knock something down earlier and I couldn't see what it was, so I'll put money on it. It was the scissors. Right, so that's that bit done. Just get rid of the paste for now until later on, because we don't need that just now. We will need it back again later on when we come to the assembly of all the petals and different pieces. So I'm just going to switch off and come back again for when I find my scissors. Right, I've got my scissors. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to find the clip into the side. And then I'm going to turn them over, because these are curved nail scissors of these that I'm using. And they come in handy for jobs like this. Let's bring that in a little bit more, it's not too obvious. You can get these as fine as you can. And I've actually done those the wrong way around, but never mind, since I've done one side I'll have to do this side the same. But I've got them curved out instead of curved in. The only problem with that is you can see what's happening here, that the pieces that I'm cutting are coming out this way, so I'm just going to bring those back in a little bit. That's a bit better. Do it the other way around. Don't want to have them stuck out too far, for the simple reason that it's easier to break pieces off, because they're basically almost like hairs of these little bits of detail that you put in. You don't have to do this on some varieties of roses. They don't all have the serrated edge. Some of them are straight. You probably might get a couple that are like this, but I'm just going for the uniform look. Right, so what I need to do now is I need to curve these back. So that side's a bit flatter, so I'm going to curve this back that way, like that. And I'm just going to put these to one side to dry on my foam. So that's the flat side, so that can go back like that. We're not doing anything else with them apart from just bending the wires back a little bit, so you've got a curve on it like that. That one's a little bit offside, was that one, but that doesn't matter because it's going to be covered by the hip part of the calyx. So that's all those curved over. So I'm just going to have a look at my rose that I've put the petals on. I'm just going to see if this is firm enough for me to risk putting the other petals on. Actually, it might be alright, that. So oh, there it is, pad. I'm just going to put that on there so it's a soft surface to be on, just in case anything starts to roll back. I don't think it will. I think it's dry enough. And get some tape. There we are. I think we should have enough there. So if I start that off underneath like that, and then bring that up underneath the petals that I've glued on. Now these that are wired should hold those in place, so I'll just get those down. Got a wire there we don't want. Right, so first thing to do is to bend the wires back so that you can place the petals underneath, and then tape that on. Now again, I'm doing the same thing. I'm going the same way underneath as I did with the petals that I've glued on. And covering over the gap where the petal underneath was. So that wants to be there. And that one wants to be there, like that. I am in some cases allowing a bit of the wire to show because that's going to be covered over by the calyx. Normally I wouldn't let wires show, but I mean if it's going to be covered over by something else, it doesn't matter. If you get your petals in the right position that you want them to be in. But again, if you're doing a competition, be very careful with that, because if they see it, they'll pick you up on it. So that wants to go over that one, and it wants to go underneath the other one. So just pull that back a little bit, so I can just slide that underneath. That way that can come back this way, and then tape that in. And tape down with that. So there we are. Now these petals here that you've just put on now, if you wanted to, you could pull those down a bit, and you can still do that when it's dry. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that upside down, because nothing on there is totally dry yet. So I can adjust the petals around a little bit, just to get them where I want them to be. So that wants to be there. That wants to be there. That's in the wrong place. That wants to come round here. So So there we are, we've got to that stage anyway, so I'm going to leave that to dry now. So I'm going to leave it upside on some foam, and then I'll come back when they've dried to add the next stages to it. So see you in the next bit. Right, I'm back. So I've left my rose to dry overnight, and what I did late last night was I put a former underneath it and then stood it upright to finish it off. So we can take that off now. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start colouring. So first of all, I'm going to talk about the colours that I'm going to use to dust my rose with. The first one that I'm going to dust onto the rose, onto the petals, is Raspberry Shimmer from Edible Art, which is one of their satin colours. If I just open this up to show you, so you can see that, and basically when you use that on anything, it comes up with a sort of a sheen. So it's not a deep colour, it's not a strong colour, it's something that's going to give the rose more of a waxy look. If you look at the other one that I did in the video that I'm redoing, I've dusted that with it, and this has been steamed as well. So you just sort of get sort of slight sheen on the flower, which gives your petals that sort of waxy look. If I'm going to do anything that's plain and not do any other colour on it, I tend to use the lustre colours, particularly on things like roses, because they bring out the colour and make it look as though it's not a flat colour, if you understand what I mean. So we'll just get rid of that one out of the way. And we'll start on this. Get that onto my kitchen roll, off your brush, so you don't want too much on it, and then just start from the edge and pull it in on all of your petals. You might need to keep your hands underneath to hold your petals in place while you do this, with the wide petals that are at the back. So I'm just going to go around the outside petals to start off with and do the first couple of layers. I'm not doing all over the petals. I mean, I'm doing as much as you can see, so you don't need to pull your petals back to get right down in there, because you're not going to see that anyway. And the whole point of colouring with a similar colour, maybe a shade like darker or whatever, on whatever you're going to do, is basically called highlighting, where you're going to make the whole thing stand out. So once you've done that layer, then you can go on to the inner ones then. On the inner petals, it's not going to make a great deal of difference to the colour, it's just going to give it sort of a sheen. And the reason I'm doing this before I put the hip on and the calyx is so that nothing gets damaged. Because when I did the original one, I was squashing, because the paste was so fresh on it, it sort of squashed the paste a bit out of shape, and then I had to try and get it all back in shape again. So because I'm doing this the day after I last spoke to you, yesterday was the Queen Elizabeth was taken to Westminster Hall in London to lay in state, where she is today. And we've still got a few days before the funeral on Monday. Again, I'd just like to state that this rose that I'm doing here is in memory of Queen Elizabeth II. Right, so I've dusted all over with that. So now I'm going to get a different brush. Just pop that back in there for a minute. And I'm going to use ginkgo for... Sorry, I'm not going to use ginkgo yet. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm using garnet to just catch the edge of the petals, a bit like I did on the Warm Wishes rose that I did last time. On your brush, off your brush. You don't want a lot on your brush when you're doing this. You just want enough just to catch the edge of the petals just here and there. All I'm doing is sort of just giving the petals as a bit of a blush, shall we say, here and there. That's a better word to describe what I'm doing. I'm not trying to get the colour all over or get an alternative colour round the edge, all the way around the edge of the petals, like you do on some of the roses. I just want to give a little bit more character to it, so I don't want it to be too obvious. Got a bit too much there on that. Right, so I've done that now. Just put that back into there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on to the calyx now. And I want some white colour, which I didn't get out. If I can find some. do snowflake. Oops. I've got something on the outside there. Just get some kitchen roll and just give this a wipe over. Oh, whatever it is dried on anyway, so that's okay. So this is snowflake from Edible Art, which is just plain white powder. So I need a clean brush for this. Yeah, that'll do. Just move those down there, then I can... So what I'm going to do is, on the side that's curved back, which is going to go basically go on the rose like that, I'm going to dust this white powder onto the calyx. So it makes it look even paler on that side. So we'll do all of those. Just move that out of the way. Try not to get too much on. I got a bit much on the first one at the top there, so try and even it all out so that you just basically just lightening the back part. Like I said before earlier on when I was colouring the paste with the green particularly, this is where you get all your effects. If you're just putting colour into the paste or changing your greens and what have you, you wouldn't get this effect, because this is where all your dusts come in handy, because they give you that finished look that you need for your flowers to make them look realistic. And what you need to do is just spend time playing around with them, make some little bit odd petals up and things like that to play with, so that you can get a feel to how the colours go and how you like them to be. If you're going to do a cake for somebody, you don't want to be doing it and then finding it that it's all wrong. You want it to look right in the first place. So the back part that's going to come back, I'm dusting with ginkgo from Edible Art. That's that one. And it's surprising how your leaves and petals and other parts of the flower change when you start getting the dust on to bring the flower to life. And sometimes it's just a matter of shading things, like I've just done on the rose there, just by highlighting here and there with a darker colour. Makes all the difference. Same with leaves and things like that. Sometimes they're a flat colour, like in the last video, the rose leaves that I did with the Warm Wishes rose, because the leaves on it are just green, unlike some of the other roses I've done. I used two colours of green, so that I highlighted the centre of the leaves with a darker shade to the colour that I've dusted all over the leaves, to make it look more lifelike rather than just being a flat dead looking colour. Sometimes it just needs to be just very subtle hints of colour, depending on what you're wanting to achieve in the end with it. So what I'm going to do now is, now that I've done that, I can add the calyx to my rose. So I've got some more dark green tape here. So I'll just get that started underneath my rose. And again, like you do with everything else, bend your wires down at a right angle like that and put your calyx in. You can adjust how the calyx sits once you've got them all wired in, because you don't want to damage anything at this point. And try and get your calyx go over. If we bring that round there, that's more comfortable. So it goes over where the two petals cross over. Just try and keep your tape right up under the wires so they don't move about. They will be fixed in place when I add the hip onto the back of the flowers. Just adjust those round to get those in the right position. Even though I made these parts of the calyx yesterday, there's still a bit of movement in them, so that while I'm adding them to the rose, if I catch anything, there's enough flexibility in the paste in order to not damage it. Now then, just work out where these are going to go. Yeah, the last one wants to go in there. That wants to go around there. That wants to go around a bit. Just ignore me talking to myself. We all do it sometimes, and it's got nothing to do with your age either. At least that's my excuse anyway, I'm sticking to it. Right, so I can now tape down from there. So the last part now is to add the hip to the back of the rose. So I'm just going to pop that in there for now while I get some green paste out. If you find your paste a bit on the dry side, which I'm finding with this, one of the things that you can do to soften it a bit is to get some white fat and mix that in with it. So if you need that into your paste while you're kneading it. These are all the little tips that you pick up as you go along. Some of it is just by trial and error, you know, it's just a matter of playing around with it and just seeing what works for you. But you need to work it in so that it's not slippery. This is a bit slippery at the moment with the fat that I've put in. So just keep working it until you get that in. This is softening up now to the way I want it, so that I can hopefully make the hip without any creases in it. Right, let's try rolling it now. that'll do. There's a bit of crack on there, but that's going to go up against the base of the rose. So if we take the rose back out of there, turn that upside down, need my glue, where's my glue gone? There. I was just gonna pop that down there, but I've got some green there, just pop it over there. So what I'm going to do is just round the base there, I'm going to add a little bit of glue and then up the wire. You don't want too much glue on there because you don't want that to be seen when you've got your hip on. Where's the crack? There it is. So if I leave it upside down and then just feed that onto the wire. There we are. Get that up underneath the flower there, then you can go around and work that to shape it. Like that. And smooth out any cracks that you've got on the back of your flower. And then we can go back to the dropped part of my centre out. So again, that's happened, so I'll show you how to repair that again. So wrong brush, get rid of that one, we don't want that one, we want the green one. So I'm just going to get some of the ginkgo powder and then just dust that over the hip. Now at this point, especially if you've left your paste so it hasn't dried properly, you can adjust your calyx now just to sit how you want it to be. Right, I'll just adjust the centre that's just come out. So what I'm going to do is the same as I did before. I'm just going to move those out of the way. Let's get rid of these pots. Which one's which? That's the raspberry shimmer. White. No, put the wrong lid on there. Oh, ginkgo. Don't want that on there, do we? Make sure you get the right lids on. That's better. And that one, just need to find the lid for that one. Wherever that's gone. Ah, there it is. Put the green paste away. Make sure everything's covered and wrapped up, and we'll get rid of that. So what I need now is some of the pink paste that I used before, and because that was the centre, I want the darker pink. You only need a tiny little bit. Palette knife and glue. Where's my glue gone? They're right under my nose somewhere because I've just used it. Oh, there it is. It's hiding underneath my roses there. That's why I couldn't see it. If I put everything back in the same place, it'd make life an awful lot easier for me, wouldn't it? So just add some glue to your paste and then work that in. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this round the base of this rather than trying to get it in there. I don't want to break any more petals. So I've put this round the base of the piece that's come off, like that. And then just pop that back into the centre. So there we are. So there is my rose already finished. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and you come back to see me in the next one. Hopefully we don't have any more circumstances like we've had this last week. It's been horrible for a lot of people, and people have come from all over the world to pass by the coffin in Westminster. Yeah, we're all a bit sad at the moment, but there we are. That's life. We all have to go at some point in time. So take care, stay safe, see you soon.